Deviator is a new Souls-like Metroidvania with parry-based combat that came out to Early Access a few weeks ago, and yeah, it's basically Hollow Knight Wish Edition. The devs at Gami Studio completely cribbed the same art style from Hollow Knight in such a way that they've got some people complaining of straight-up plagiarism. But it's actually pretty fun to play. After getting through 9 Souls a few months back, I was itching for more parry-based combat, and Deviator delivers. In fact, the parry-based combat is much simpler than in 9 Souls, as there's no talisman detonation to worry about here. Instead, it's more in line with the parry counter combat from Blasphemous or Moonscars. And since Blasphemous is one of my favorite games, the combat in Deviator clicked with me immediately. As far as the allegations of plagiarism are concerned, unless the Deviator devs explicitly use the same exact assets from Hollow Knight itself, then there's nothing illegal about what they did from an aesthetics standpoint. You might think it's too similar, but you can't copyright an art style, and considering how popular and influential Hollow Knight is, it's kind of surprising we haven't seen more HK clones pop up until recently. Case in point, Crowsworn is another such upcoming title that also cribs the art style and will probably receive similar flack to Deviator if it ever releases. Controversies aside, Deviator is surprisingly solid, even in its early access state. My first time through this version of the game took me about 5 or so hours, and once you get through the first biome or so, there are distinctive visual differences from Hollow Knight, like the machine or prison biome that do deviate from biomes we've seen in Hollow Knight. Aside from what I consider to be excellent combat, Deviator also makes a few other significant changes to the traditional Metroidvania formula that I thought were refreshing. Fast healing. This is a huge one if you're coming off of the sluggish healing of 9 Souls or Bow Path of the Teal Lotus. Healing takes all of 1 second, and you can heal up to 3 hit points simultaneously, assuming you have enough green dots to do so. This is really clutch in boss fights or during exploration, as you can heal nearly instantaneously and even when you're doing other actions, like wall climbing. The first ability you acquire is Dash, and it too can counter certain attacks. Dash is generally an ability you'll find in nearly every Metroidvania, but it's not always the first one acquired. Not only does this help in general traversal and exploration, but in Deviator the dash can also counter specific enemy attacks, which is something I haven't seen elsewhere in this genre. Fast travel between checkpoints is unlocked after you find a certain amount of them. Typically, Metroidvanias follow suit with Dark Souls in terms of giving you the ability to fast travel between checkpoints fairly late in the game, but here in Deviator, you'll gain that ability after discovering a certain number of checkpoints. That's kind of great, as it removes any tedium with backtracking for items or returning to previous inaccessible paths right from the get-go. You can bank your XP at checkpoints and find items to increase the bankable limit. While Deviator does follow the classic Souls-like drop all your XP upon death mechanic that's typical of the genre, it does offer the ability to find agreement items, which allow you to increase the amount of XP you can bank at any given checkpoint. This is great if you think you're going to die multiple times to a boss and might lose all your XP. Just bank it beforehand and you'll have nothing to worry about. Excellent boss fights. I really enjoyed the boss fights in this game, particularly the prison boss and the final night boss at the tail end of the early access content. The attacks are well telegraphed and the fights last for multiple phases, with each new phase resulting in new combinations of previous attacks that you'll need to account for. It took me almost an hour to beat the final night boss my first time through, but by the end I was completely hooked on the combat and wanted more. Overall, I had a lot of fun with Deviator, and am looking forward to the final version whenever it releases in the future. Despite cribbing the Hollow Knight art style, it's a good game that adds a lot of quality of life improvements over other Metroidvania Souls-likes, and I didn't find anything with the game to be frustrating or a waste of my time in general. That's why I'm giving Deviator Early Access an 8 out of 10. As for the whopping price of $6, you'll probably enjoy this game a lot, especially if you're a fan of Blasphemous-style combat. What did you think of Deviator? Is the art style a deal breaker for you, or is this right up your alley? Sound off in the comments below. Anyway, that's all I got for you. Now get the hell out of here.
How terrible is wisdom when it brings no profit to the wise, Johnny. was Cypher. Lucifer. Only the soul is immortal. And yours belongs to me.